Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to meet and have you meet Dan Tocchini. And let me tell you about Dan. He's been helping leaders bring some more magic into their teams for over 35 years. He has worked with executive teams from Interstate Batteries and ESPN to Smarty Pants vitamins. I like that name, Smarty Pants Vitamins.
It's cute, yeah.
Impulse Space, as well as with other nonprofits like Homeboy Industries and Defy Ventures. Dan gives no-fluff approach to helping transform leadership teams without any pixie dust, just courageous leadership, creative conflict resolution, and relevant restructuring. No conversation is too difficult, no situation too complicated or conflicting, because a leader with a vision cannot be held hostage by circumstance or history. So today we're going to talk about leadership, as you know, my favorite topic, but leadership is a sacred experience, and we're going to be finding out why Dan thinks that. So please join me in welcoming my guest, Dan Tocchini. Dan. So we're all excited about talking about leadership today, but we start with really two easy questions for you, hopefully. One is just tell everybody, where do you live? Where do you call home right now? I know some of the people I interview are nomads and there's homes different every day. But just tell us that. And then the second question is just to share what this journey has been like for you to oftentimes where you are today was nowhere in your vision when you were a young man, but circumstances and passion, purpose has driven you to this place where you are today. So please share.
So thank you, Vicki. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I grew up in California, and I live between Santa Rosa, California, which is in the north, right in the wine country. I have a little place there. My son's there, 3 grandkids. Nice. And then I have a home in Boise, Idaho. I live next door to my daughter, who has 2 daughters, and kind of split the time between the two over the year. So love to see my grandkids, constantly involved with them. And our offices are in LA. So I work, of course, we do a lot of work on site, and I get a chance to travel quite a bit, along with my wife, who's the VP of coaching for our company. We've got about 12, 14 people that work with us that are consultants and so on.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I love hanging out with my grandkids. I love to fish. I live and hunt, and I'm an outdoors guy, and I do get as much time outside as I can here in Idaho. And then I get to go back and visit my kids in California. My dad lives in California, just turned 90. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's in the movie business. He's working. He has never stopped working. My dad is my grandfather opened the first talking motion picture theater north of San Francisco, and he sat on the board of Universal, I think when they first were founded. And I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, which led me really to want, to like, what is leadership? Because,
Mhm.
if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to lead a team of people. And I was very much into sports. So I got into leadership there. I played basketball, football, baseball. I ran track. So I played sports through high school. And then my mother was a schizophrenic. After she had my youngest brother, she had an attack, basically a breakdown, and
Yeah.
that shattered the family. I was about 18, went into, I think, a lot of trauma, did deep cocaine addiction, that whole craziness. I've been clean now 41 years.
Mhm.
And leading myself out of that, finding a way out of that way of life and recapturing or regaining and going after my vision was a major, deal, and almost lost my wife in the process. And
Wow.
so there's a whole lot there. We celebrate our 44th anniversary in 3 days. So
Well, so we have another thing in common. I just celebrated on the 23rd of June my 46th anniversary.
yeah. Oh, congratulations. Yeah.
Yes.
We've been dating for 49 and married for
Yeah,
40. Yeah.
same here. I
Oh,
dated
that's
3 years before we got married too.
awesome.
So cool. Very cool. And I love California. I honestly haven't spent too much time in Idaho, but I do love the openness of that, and fishing is fun. I'm not too much of a hunter, but I do like to fish.
Yeah, I love the fish, and
Yeah.
I like snowmobiles too. So
Yeah. Oh my, so fun. I
yeah.
grew up with a snowmobile, so I do know that is tons of fun. All right, so let us get into this. My first question is, so why why do you say leadership is a sacred experience?
Well, there's a number of ways to go with that, but I'll start with the simplest definition, which is we're working with people with their perception. We're working with how they perceive themselves, how they perceive other people, what they tend to when they're with people, which alters neurologically. If you do any, my background's in neuropsychology
Mm,
and philosophy, and when you start to work with people in the way they view things, it changes the way they see the world, and it changes what they act on, and so that, and it changes how you impact people. So if you're going to work with people on how they're going to impact people, if you're going to work with them on the way they see the world, then it's a sacred act, because you're really inviting them into something that's going to alter the way they behave and actually who they are as they grow. So
mhm,
for me, that's a sacred act. I think about it a lot. I think about, what's my impact on this person, and I invite them to consider the impact they're having, and on as they accomplish their mission with their team, that
mhm.
kind of thing. So
Awesome. So you just sprinkled in a little gem there about your education, which I didn't mention. And what comes to mind is, how much did your issues with your mom influence you wanting to understand the mind more?
oh, a ton. I read the first book I read at 12 was Gestalt Therapy verbatim, and then
Oh my gosh.
I just wanted to understand how to, because she was so she's really intelligent, right? I think her IQ
Yeah.
is 170 something, and she was just intrusive, and she'll interrupt you. She didn't care if you're the Pope. If she had something to say, she's going to say it. So
Mhm.
I learned to be able to deal with, and I have a very high tolerance for bluntness, right? And so, and I also learned how, like I tell my clients, you can't get too weird for me, because I've been through some weird
Yeah,
experiences. So the,
weird.
the weirder it gets, it seems the more grounded I get. And one of the things I say is that, order chaos and release beauty, because and when I look at the early part of my life, it was about reordering, ordering the chaos that was descending upon us, and releasing some beauty, right? And that took numerous years to get a hold of that,
Yeah.
and continues to. It's a game, I don't think it's a never ending game. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, so cool. So, who is most likely to seek out your services that you offer?
Well,
that are trying to be successful?
well, we are a full our focus, and if you look at our website, you'll see it is we usually get hired by teams that are up against either they've had a they've got some dysfunction, and that could be anything from silos and they're missing deadlines, and or they've got some turnover. In fact, my first contract with ESPN was to come in and help really stop the turnover rate in their finance department, and I had the privilege of working with one of the best CFOs I've ever worked with in my life. She just retired, Chris Dreesen, but I was able to go in there and work with her, and I won the contract, which was amazing because I was bidding
Big
against
time. Mm-hmm.
some other pretty big companies. So got very much into solving problems. So they usually hire us when there's a dysfunction or there's a leadership transition, and they want to reground the leadership team. If the transition, if you have a leadership transition and it hangs too long, a lot of people get nervous and people
Yeah.
jump ship, that kind of thing. And the other thing is with performance issues. We do a lot of work with companies that a lot of engineers, like a lot of tech companies, they may have 40, 50. One of the last jobs I had last year was the company had 180 engineers, and then coordinating the different engineering departments along with marketing and product, et cetera. We'll implement and work with them on implementing performance management software and how to, because you got to, that everybody goes, no thanks. And you get bad information, you get bad insights. So you've got to really, and so just getting people's minds around that, working with them around a culture of a learning culture. How do you do that? How do you work with them so that they're willing to, they get it's it's good, it's going to benefit them if they get into it, if they take care of it. And there's some ways to simplify the processes. A lot of times people come in and make things way too complicated. That's why I said relevant restructuring. There's sometimes legacy systems that have to be revamped, et cetera, those kinds of things. So those are the three areas that we tend to focus on. And those are usually when we're getting called, they call us, and we'll bring a whole team. We'll bring three of our executives. We'll usually spend time on the ground with our team and their team, and we'll work with them in implementing and solving the problem from beginning to end. So that's
I
our
know.
focus, yeah.
My last 20 years in my career at UPS was a project lead, and in that I oftentimes came in to fix dysfunctional teams, and part of that, I think, is why I have this two-sided career now, is teaching how to be a more engaging speaker, communicator, as well as leadership, because you can't really do one well without the other. And if you talk about engineers, they're not the best communicators in the world.
Oh, no.
and not people persons, I guess.
Just generally they're not. And they're used to, working with a machine. And oftentimes they'll even they may come across as curt. They're just not aware of their impact. And they're just not, and they're usually, many of most of the guys I work with are just great guys. They just haven't thought about, nor have they been, taught or worked with or trained in the art of conversation, and particularly having a conversation in the midst of conflict in a way that would generate possibility rather than just
enhance the conflict.
That's right. Enhance it or get away from it, and then it grows, right?
Yeah, so true. And it is really important. Whenever you're of that mind where I have the facts, these are the facts, and you forget about that there are people, human beings around that you are trying to convey those facts to. How you say it is so important if you want to be reaching them, motivating them, helping them understand. So
Yeah, and you know, I've been able to get their attention because I'll talk neuroscience with them, and very few people realize that the brain's split in two. There's two hemispheres. The
mhm.
left hemisphere is about reducing things down to particles and, you know, to the really specific
Yeah.
and static, right? And it lends itself to creating dogma and, you know, and really um, warping perception of reality, right? So you might have
Yes.
the facts, but there are the right hemispheres, it puts
Creative.
context on it, looks at it globally. What's the impact? So it's very
Mhm.
easy for an engineer to be so locked in to what they're doing, their part of the project, their department, that their personal, you know, goals, etc., that it's easy to miss the larger picture and get just laser focused on what they're doing. And oftentimes, if you're just laser focused on what you're doing, you may miss what's important to the mission because you're just doing what you're
Right.
up to and you haven't thought about how that fits in the mission. So just getting them to think that way, and I'll go through the neuroscience with them, and that it seems to hook them because they start to realize,
Mhm.
well, you know, we're a
Yeah.
machine too. We're there are certain things we need to be aware of about the machine we are, so we can check into the blind spots that are naturally produced by our machinery. So
Yeah. Two things come to mind when you're saying that, when you talk about machinery, coding is ones and zeros. And
yeah,
and so you can't just work on that one side, you have to have the other side, the two parts of the brain. Um, the other group that I found challenging oftentimes was finance,
oh, yeah.
because they're focused on the money, the money, the money. And again, they're forgetting about having their message about the money address the pain, the problem from a personal standpoint, the people that are, you know, um, they're impacting, as you said. So,
Yeah, and it's easy to get stuck in playing not to lose and
oh
not,
yeah,
you don't see an immediate return sometimes of an investment, and there might be intangible returns that they're not counting on. And so then, to your point, the ability to create a narrative where they can also connect into the larger picture is vital, because if they get hooked up or stuck on purely saving money or, you know, making sure the dollars are in the right places and don't understand the larger picture,
yeah,
they won't be able to join the team, align with the team as you make an investment that may not have an immediate return. So
yeah. Some of the projects that I was either involved with or used as reference to help folks was where uh, our company invested almost 25 years into expanding to Europe. There was no money being made in that beginning time, but it's almost like, as you were saying, whenever you have a small child, you invest in them. You aren't getting any money out of that 18
yeah,
years of that child. They are just draining you from money, time, energy. But at the end, as I look at now, my daughter's a 30 years, it's like all of that time and energy was worth it. So in business, I think that's why leadership is a sacred experience, because it's our job as the leaders to feed into those individuals that make our company great so that they can realize their greatness and then pour into others. And the impact is just that rippling effect.
yeah, that legacy. That's, you know, if you really start to get the culture straight and you maintain the culture, it becomes a legacy, and people start
Mhm.
to take a pride in what they've actually produced together. There's nothing better than to hear somebody say they get so much out of work that it impacts their personal life. It makes it better rather than takes away from it, which is one of the goals we have when we work with a team, is that what we work with them on will not only support them at work, but it'll give them tools and insights that are going to they're going to benefit from in their family and their social life as well.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit now about teams. I'd love to hear your thoughts about what is the most valuable aspect of being on a team as opposed to a solopreneur or, a one-man department type of thing.
Yeah, well, I'm a very strong proponent of team. I love team, mainly because if the team's aligned well with what you're up to, the vision and the mission, and there's a candid, a culture of candidness and commitment to the mission. Well, if you got, let's say you got 6 or 7 on your leadership team or 8, well, that's 16 eyes on the problem and 16 different perspectives about how
Yes.
to deal with the problem. And they're going to know how to resource in ways that you as the leader may not even be aware of. Or you have some inkling, but you're not aware of all the nuances that go along with it. So that's one of the big benefits on a business side. Personally, it's great to sit down with people and roll up your sleeves, and that synergy starts to happen. And there's a ton of studies on this, but we're smarter together than we are alone. So your IQ jumps points when you're working with a team of people, particularly a team of people that are willing to have the difficult conversations. They're committed to the mission more than just protecting themselves. That opens up a huge opportunity for personal growth as well as, growth for the organization and the team itself.
Yeah, so very true. And it just makes work more fun if you got the right team too.
Well,
It's a
at
lot
my
more
age,
fun.
I told my partners when we started this company, I'm very particular about who we're going to work with because I've now been doing this for many years, and I want to work with the people I want to work with. I
No
want to be,
jerks allowed.
no jerks. I'm sorry. You might be really gifted, but there's a place for you somewhere, just not here.
Mhm.
Right.
And I think also, as you were talking about this, it made me think about too, when we think about the team aspect and the benefits of the different perspective, I think one of the failures that some leaders can get into is, it's their vision, it's their mission, and their idea of how to get to that end goal may be different than other members of the team. And so we always talk about what we open door policy and brainstorming. There's no wrong answers, but I know that in my 40 years of being in corporate, there had been many times where my ideas were dismissed because they weren't the idea of the team lead or the owner. And
Yeah.
it's, I always, as I train people, I say, life is, we have our GPS, and we learn from GPS that there are different ways to get to a end point, and none of them are wrong. Maybe some take you a little longer. Maybe some give you benefits of seeing more that you would have missed, but and you have to be open to those different recalculations of the process.
Yeah, I think there's often a misunderstanding amongst leadership, or with leaders, that if I'm open and listening, somehow I'm agreeing with what's being said, rather than understanding what they're seeing that I may not be seeing. I like to think when I'm at my best, I hold my opinions like hypotheses, and I hold my decisions like experiments. And I ask people to listen, when we talk, if they would I want them to argue as if they're right, but to listen as if they could be wrong. And I'll do the same. And so kind of thinking that way really opens up an environment where you can test an idea and you can keep reminding each other what you're up to. And usually if there's a good exchange, even if it's, disagreement, and we sit on it for a while, the best decisions come out of those kinds of conflicts around the ideas, not, and most leaders, though, unfortunately, or many that I've worked with, have already made up their mind, and they're in the discussion just to go through the motion, so that in hopes that they can get the team onto what they've already decided they're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's a real problem, especially if you're
Yeah.
dealing with smart people.
Yeah. The whole point of hearing that, if you don't agree with something, you can't just dismiss it either. You do have to have that conversation, that
Yeah.
discussion as to why you don't think it would work, and encourage them, challenge them to convince you
Yeah.
of why. But I love that you said experiment, because to me, I always loved at the what if scenarios that I would do with my team. Okay, so what if we did that? Can we do a small test of that to prove
Right
that it will,
on.
rather than putting all our money in on that idea and finding it's a bust and wasted 9 months or whatever. And so getting people accepting failure as a way to learn more, to be better, to be stronger, I think is also a quality of a great leader too.
Yeah, and the ability for the leader to be hard on the problem and soft on the person, right? To be able to maintain the relationship, but still, hey, look, this isn't working based on these results, at least not for me. And let's talk about what we said we're going to have and what we have, and then being able to have people look at the way they're looking at the problem, because
Yeah.
the problem usually isn't the problem. The problem is usually how I hold the problem, how I perceive the problem. In fact, there's a number of studies out of Harvard and Tufts around the cognitive breakdowns, right? Cognitive breakdowns, the way we see things, make up about 95% of breakdowns. And oftentimes people go right to trying to do something rather than work with the way they're seeing it. Because if I don't change the way I see something, it's almost like rearranging the furniture on the Titanic, right?
Yeah.
The ship's still going down,
It
feels a
is
little
still
better. But there you
still
are, the
going
ship's
down.
still going down, right? The music's playing, but we're going to drown in a very short period of time. So,
Great example.
yeah.
So I love this next one because and it goes along with our previous conversation about who you put on your team. So who gets to sit at your table and
Yeah.
why?
Yeah,
I love this.
that's a thing. You know, I'm a big family guy. I have a big family. We have, our family, there's about 20 of us up here in Idaho. And I've always looked at having a company. Well, even though they may not be my family, I'm going, we're going to live together 40% of our time, or
Yeah.
a good portion of our time is going to be spent together. So I want to know what they're made of. I want to know their character as well as their
That's
competence.
right.
And there's many ways to discover that. That's why I'm a strong believer in a, 90-day trial period. Let's work this as date for a while. Then, here, they come up with what they're going to deliver. But even in the interview process, I'm paying close attention to the way they listen, how they speak, their ability to have a difficult conversation. When do they lose their presence? Like, when do they go into defense? Are they able to catch themselves and bring themselves back to the conversation? Are they aware of their own machinery? Are they aware of their own, what we call rackets, the things they use to protect themselves? Defensiveness, shutting down, fight, flight, follow, fool, or freeze. There's so many different tactics that you
Yeah.
can. And are they aware of that? And if they are, great, because it's no problem that we all have these. My wife would say, when she breaks me up often, I'm a drama king, so I can start running my number, and she'll just go like this, or my daughter will go, take 22. Dan's getting upset. They call me the bear. And
Oh, gee.
I just start chuckling because I get it. It's my way of sometimes getting my way, is to get flip and blustery and so on. But to know that, to be able to see that in yourself, to be able to interrupt it right on, to integrate it into your everyday work. Like, one of the things we talk about is you don't have to get rid of it. I mean, it's
How do
there
you
for a reason.
use it? How do you use it?
Use it like an ally. When you find yourself
Yeah.
going there, there's probably something you're afraid of, you don't want to see, or whatever. If you know that, it's signaling you to take a look.
Well, so time has flown by. We've had such great conversation today about leadership and the important things that we need to recognize in ourselves as leaders, as well as to strengthen and grow. As one last question. What would two takeaways from what we discussed today would you want the audience to remember if they didn't remember anything else of the great things you shared today? What would two things be that you would like them to remember?
I think the two things are that what I talked about is hold your opinions like hypothesis and your decisions like experiments, and argue as if you're right and listen like you could be wrong. And the last one, which we didn't talk too much about, I didn't talk about, which is don't try to explain your way out of what you behaved your way in. Because if you behaved your way in, you can behave your way out. So
great advice. All right. If you are just listening, you should quickly go run and grab a paper and pencil or pen, because I'm going to give you contact information. You should have been taking notes all along, but remember that all of this will be on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. Please subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com show notes. So Dan's website is takenewground.com. Again, that's takenewground.com. On Instagram, it is his name with an underscore. So Dan_Tocchini, which is TOCCHINI. LinkedIn is his name again, and he has a podcast called The Naked Leadership. I'm going to turn it over to Dan to talk to you about some resources and ebooks and things that he has on his website and any social media that he spends the most time, and a little bit about that podcast. It's all yours.
So we have on our website, if you scroll down, you'll find the Change Imperative. It's a ebook. I wrote it many years ago when ESPN, they were utilizing us as they were being bought up by Disney, and how to, they were using it, because it's a big change, and it's all about how to deal with change. And I think you'll find that to be valuable. It's 90 pages. It's a short little book, but it goes through things you can expect to encounter. Many people, like things you can look for. So when they come up, things are getting better, even though they seem like they're getting worse at first.
Yeah.
And then the website, that's on the website. And then Instagram, I probably do most of my interactions on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time. The Naked Leadership podcast is about conversations that leaders don't generally have in public. And we have some guests. My two partners and I talk together because we're talking through things that we've dealt with and are dealing with our clients. We have quite a client base, and we talk about what we're learning, some of the lessons that we learned, some of the mistakes that we make, how we recover from them, that kind of thing.
Wow. Awesome. Dan, it has been just a wonderful time with you today. You're such a treasure to talk with. You've got such a great background, lots of excellent advice for the audience on leadership and being a better team. And I hope that everyone has enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. I do want to have you back so we can talk a little bit more about maybe the couple areas that I didn't get to, which would be talking about when do you bring up an issue and how do you deal with being upset with a team member or suffering a disappointment in either at work or at home. So great discussion I think we can have with that last piece that we didn't get to today. And as always, in addition to thanking you, I'd like to just remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.